What is going on, Titan Nation? We appreciate y'all for tuning in. We appreciate all your support of the Titan Upload Network. We are in the hunt for 13,000 subscribers. We've been going for a few years now, and we really appreciate all you guys. This is a lot of fun for us. We love it as Titans fans, but we have an awesome lineup for you guys tonight. As you could see, we have Sam Phalen from AtoZ Sports, and we also have MJ, one of the OGs of the Titans YouTube world, and has an awesome channel in his own right from Sports Fan Entertainment. I appreciate you guys coming on tonight. So I kind of want to get to this first thing. Obviously, the main thing that popped up from today was at the Super Bowl, and shout out to the Sick Podcast guys, because Jared from the Sick Podcast had got this little clip. I didn't even know they were there. It's cool they're doing that type of stuff now, so shout out to them. But Jared Foote of that, I'll play the video, and Sam, I want to get your thoughts on it first. I know you've probably hit on this in various shows today or interviews or whatever, but we'll go ahead and roll it here.
To you to play with him again in Tennessee, to go back home where everything started, and you won Mr. Football over there.
It would be good, going back home to family, and then being able to play for a coach that I already been under, so it would be ideal.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you very much.
So I guess the question I have from you, Sam, and is this just kind of typical player fodder, like he's just saying what any other player would say, or is there any merit to this that you think, as far as this type of thing goes?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think anytime an NFL player, a professional athlete, especially one with the pedigree of T. Higgins, is approaching free agency, you want to keep options open. You want to make destinations sound like a good place. Hey, how can I connect my name with as many different teams as possible? Because that's going to drive up the price. That's going to get teams talking. Hey, maybe if Cincinnati wants to come to a contract extension and come to an agreement with T. Higgins here this offseason, they know that he's looking elsewhere. So I do think it is some generic talk from T. Higgins from that standpoint to keep his options open. I do think this is somewhat of a natural line to draw, though, and there is something here. I mean, it's not a coincidence why Titans media, Titans fans, NFL people in general, even nationally, have drawn the line from T. Higgins to Tennessee, one with him growing up in Tennessee, and then the Brian Callahan connection and the need for a wide receiver here, the money the Titans have to spend in free agency. This would seem like a natural fit. So I guess if you're T. Higgins, it only benefits you to get more people talking about you potentially being a good fit for their team. How realistic is that? That remains to be the question, because T. Higgins might not even get to free agency.
Right. And MJ, what are your thoughts on T. Higgins as a whole? Is he a guy that you want, that do you think he would fit? Well, I guess we don't really know what Callahan's scheme is yet, but do you think he would fit as a Tennessee Titan, his play style and everything?
Well, yeah, I mean, especially considering the fact that he already has that relationship with Brian Callahan. He already would know the offense that Callahan wants to run. They already have familiar terminologies and certain things that they would use, and that natural chemistry that they have. That alone, for sure, makes him a fit. In terms of my thoughts of him as an overall player, I'm intrigued because, he has been that number 2 guy behind Jamar Chase. So the question would be, because he's going to get paid number 1 wide receiver money, would he live up to that? And I believe he would. I mean, he's been 1,000-yard wide receiver multiple seasons. But also, you're probably going to have to pay him considerably. I'm anticipating a contract very similar to A.J. Brown. And A.J. Brown, outside of, some of the, theatrics and some of the drama that happens behind the scenes, he elevated his play after he left Tennessee. Would T. Higgins do the same? That would be the question. But still working with Brian Callahan, I feel like very comfortable in saying that would be the case.
Callahan's a guy too. He's described what he wants in a wide receiver already. I don't think it's a coincidence that when asked about it in his introductory press conference, he pointed to the Cincinnati Bengals wide receivers and the receiving core that he already had in Cincinnati, and Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins, and pointed to things like being selfless, being willing to block, understanding that the ball might not always be coming your way, but making a play or running a route to set up a teammate for success. It seems like T. Higgins is a guy who's bought into that because of how highly Brian Callahan spoke of the Cincinnati receiving core as a whole. I think that's even more fodder to the idea that he would be a good fit here. But does Cincinnati let him get away? I have a hard time seeing him not be franchise tagged. The more realistic fit might be Tyler Boyd. Like, that might be the more realistic Tennessee Titans wide receiver in free agency here.
Is Boyd a free agent too?
Yeah, both are going to be unrestricted free agents here. So, I mean, they can't keep both of them, obviously, and they wouldn't franchise tag Tyler Boyd anyway. So, hey, if T. Higgins gets tagged, maybe you go and you get Tyler Boyd, certainly a step down from T. Higgins, but a valuable member of a receiving core and adds a weapon that is an upgrade from what the Titans had in 2023.
Right. Yeah, Boyd's been in the league for a while now. I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years. And I think, I think a lot of this too, like if they go wide receiver in the draft, I think the only way that, I guess it's a good shot that they could go wide receiver if Joe Alt is not available. I would think that. Now, we've had discussions on this channel. Turron Davenport was on here a couple of weeks arguing with James, who comes on here sometimes, just about, taking the best player available at the spot that they're at, number 7. And obviously, if Joe Alt's off the board and you still got Fashanu, but you also have, like, say, a Malik Neighbors available, like, what are you doing? Are you taking a Neighbors, or is Fashanu worth the number 7 spot if he's, still available there, if Alt's not?
I might take Malik Neighbors if Joe Alt is there. Like, I think Malik Neighbors is that good of a wide receiver. He's a game changer. I think the Titans might do that as well. I have become more bullish about the idea that the Titans would go with a receiver at 7 before they go offensive tackle. I felt that way pretty strongly about where people in the organization were on this draft class before Brian Callahan was hired. Seeing Brian Callahan as the hire for the Tennessee Titans at head coach makes me feel even stronger, because he was in this exact same position with the Bengals when they were picking 7th overall and had a choice between Penei Sewell and Jamar Chase. And they went with Jamar Chase. I believe Brian Callahan believes in acquiring playmakers, acquiring guys who make plays down the field and can make life easier for a quarterback. Listen to his answer at the opening press conference about protection, where he says it's not just about the offensive line. I think he thinks he can scheme up protection. He can use chips and use running backs to get protection. He can run route trees that gets the ball out of Will Levis's hands quickly to help protection. You can do that with DeAndre Hopkins and Malik Neighbors. And so I think that's a guy who is good enough where you put up my mock draft there quickly.
Yeah.
Like, I think the Titans are going to go with a receiver at 7 where things currently sit right now. Reason number 2 for that is also the depth that I personally feel is at offensive tackle that I'm not as sold on at the receiver position. I was severely underwhelmed by some of the round 2, round 3 receivers that I looked at the Senior Bowl last week. But I do think there's a lot of raw talent in the offensive tackle 8 to 11 range in this draft class. And so when you start looking down there at the Jermaine Burtons and Xavier Legette's and Ladd McConkey's and Ricky Pearsall's, those weren't guys that blew me away. But I think you could still get a really good left tackle at pick 38. And I mean, the Titans, I don't expect to necessarily be a team that plays for need and tries to I think they're going to take the best player available, essentially. They're not going to try and play this thing like, oh, well, what might be there at 38? But you have to at least consider the depth that is at another position and how you approach your 7th overall pick.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the depth at tackle. I mean, I think it's a pretty deep class this year. And as far as, say the Titans getting somebody in the 2nd or whatever, going for Neighbors in the 1st, in MJ, I mean, what would you do? I mean, what is your thoughts as a fan, and as far as in the draft goes and what the Titans should do?
Yeah, it really will depend also on what we do in free agency, because I mean, as of now, as we know, we discussed T. Higgins earlier. There's also a Mike Evans and some other wide receiver talent, to where if you get one of those guys, and I don't know how long Hopkins is going to be. He'll be here next year, I'm sure, but I don't know much longer than that. You would feel better then, about maybe not taking Neighbors, but I am firmly right now on Neighbors being a better prospect than both Alt and Olu-Fashanu. That's where I am on that. Not that, anything against Joe Alt or Olu-Fashanu, but I think Neighbors is a home run. I think he's just a hair under Marvin Harrison Jr. I think he'd come in here and make plays instantly. And assuming you have a competent GM, particularly in this draft, but I think in other drafts too, finding a premier left tackle can be difficult, but finding offensive linemen in general is something we should just be better at. Right? We should just be better at drafting offensive linemen in rounds 2 through 7 in general. So I'm banking on Randy Carthon being the guy to be able to do that for you to feel comfortable enough to saying, okay, we could take Malik Neighbors. He's that special. I just think he has just a little bit more juice than a Joe Alt or Olu-Fashanu. And they may be absolute stalwart tackles on 100%, but I think Malik Neighbors is going to be an absolute star at the next level, and that's really hard to pass up for a team that had a budding star wide receiver in A.J. Brown, but before that, went years without having anything of the sort at that position.
Yeah, I would agree. I think he's maybe right below Marvin Harrison Jr. You could really make an argument to me that Malik Neighbors is the best receiver in this class. I do think he's that good. I think he is far and away better than any wide receiver in last year's draft class. And so when you start looking at a position of need, maybe it's muted a little bit by the fact that you have DeAndre Hopkins on your roster, that it doesn't feel like as prevalent of a need. But if Treylon Burks isn't developing and he's not going to end up being a frontline wide receiver in the NFL, you're looking at a 2025 Titans team, one more year of DeAndre Hopkins and essentially nothing in the pipeline and a pretty bare cupboard after that. And so what's important for Will Levis? Obviously protecting him. But I do think you can fix some of the offensive line problems without necessarily taking the premier offensive tackle at 7. It's going to be really hard to find that surefire number 1 wide receiver that all of the NFL's elite quarterbacks have, an elite pass catcher with them, without going and doing it now. And I don't know if the Titans are going to be picking this high with this same opportunity to get a talent like Malik Neighbors ever again. I don't want that to sound similar to what MJ said, like a knock on Joe Alt. I think he's a really good player, a really, really good player that's going to be a starting left tackle for a long time. And if the Titans end up with Joe Alt, I'm cool with that. They're no sweat off my back. I think it's an area that they could go that I would not feel bad about. I think the opportunity to take Malik Neighbors is a really big one.
It's so enticing. And I mean, the Titans are known for, everybody will think, oh, they're going to do this. They're going to do this. Or if Joe Alt's there, it's 100% the Titans are going to pick them and this and that. But as we've known through history, the Titans have gone against the grain quite a few times. And they've been, like MJ had brought this up. I mean, in the history, the offensive line choices that they've made have been pretty bad. And it's we've seen the fallout from picking the wrong left tackle, and how it can set you back for years. I mean, the past 2 years, we have absolutely struggled at this left tackle position. I mean, the offensive line in general, but especially the left tackle position. And I think it shows us how important that position is. But at the same time, you look at teams like the Bengals with Jamar Chase, and we sacked them 9 times in that playoff game. But who went to the Super Bowl? Not us. The Bengals.
I love bringing up the Bengals in this situation. And I know it's easy because of Brian Callahan and the same situation that they were in. But to me, the Titans feel like they're in that exact same spot where the Bengals took Jamar Chase, and some people loved it. Some people hated it. Some people said, this guy's a difference maker. Some people said, how are you going to do this to Joe Burrow when he coming off a torn ACL and you couldn't protect him, that you don't take an offensive tackle and a really strong offensive tackle in Penei Sewell? There were 2 sides of the coin. People were on either side. And I think with hindsight, what have we learned? That really either pick was a good pick for the Bengals. They're very happy with Jamar Chase. Penei Sewell's a rock star in Detroit. And both of those things are true. And so I do think there's a very real scenario where the Titans could take Malik Neighbors. He could be awesome. And you might look at Joe Alt's success somewhere else and be like, man, I wish we had that left tackle. And vice versa. You could lock down the left tackle and then be sitting here next offseason saying, I wish we had a difference maker like Malik Neighbors in our offense.
Right. And so another thing that it came out, I don't know if it was today or yesterday. I'm sure y'all both seen it, but when they were it was on Phil or Chris Sims, his show, and they had asked Brock Bowers who he would, which team he would like to go to. I'll play the clip. Sorry for the quality, but here's the clip of him basically saying he's interested in the Titans.
Well, I know you can't control it, but if you could, where would you want to go?
Whoever wants to take me. I mean, it's hard to say. I'd love to go to.
He wants the Niners to get rid of Kittle, and then he wants to go to the 49ers.
I'd be all right.
Let him say it.
I'd be all right with going to the Tennessee Titans. I mean, I liked it down in the Georgia, Tennessee area. I thought it was cool, but yeah.
So there's another wrinkle, Brock Bowers, the tight end everybody's talking about. Really, I mean, the tight end depth this year is pretty, not too great in the draft, but Brock Bowers is another guy that people have been talking about. I don't watch a ton of college football. Like I follow the Vols. I do once the season ends and this draft stuff starts coming along, I really dig into the players and watching tape and all this stuff and all the various players that the Titans could be interested in and things like that. Now I've seen a lot of highlight film of Brock Bowers. He seems like a guy that could potentially be like a Travis Kelce type of guy who could line up multiple positions. I don't know how much y'all know about him, but I'll kind of let y'all run with that and talk about him and all that.
Yeah, I'll throw an extra wrinkle in it. Like, why does Brock Bowers want to be a Tennessee Titan? One, I think it goes back to the conversation with T. Higgins, right? If Brock Bowers doesn't believe that the Chargers are going to take him at pick 5, Tennessee might be his best shot before he falls into the teens of the first round of this draft. And so the more seeds you can plant about, hey, this wouldn't be a bad spot for me to go, the better. I'll also remind everybody or inform everybody that doesn't know that Brock Bowers' girlfriend goes to the University of Tennessee in Knoxville. And so perhaps being around his significant other is a factor there as well. A guy who's like, my girlfriend's in Tennessee. I might as well go to Tennessee rather than Los Angeles. That might sound pretty good to him, especially coming from Georgia. As far as the player, very good, very special player. I kind of view him as like a better version of Cole Kmet, I think, is more of his play style. I think he's a really successful blocker, especially in the run game, has a lot of size. I don't know if he has the improvisation ability of Travis Kelce. I think part of what makes Kelce so special is his ability to improvise, find holes in the defense, and then just having chemistry and connection with his quarterback. I don't think he has the speed of a Kittle or some of those physical gifts, but he's just a really big dude that knows how to catch the ball, knows how to get open, and has tremendous play strength. And so I see a more advanced version of Cole Kmet in him. the Titans could absolutely, like, hey, I'm not going to complain either if they had a Brock Bowers on their team, but I might complain if they took a Brock Bowers at 7th overall, given the number of needs that we know this team has. Like, with what we know about this receiving core, with what we know about this offensive line, I'm sorry, I can't see how taking a tight end at number 7 makes a lot of sense, whether you're super high on Chig, all the way down on Chig, or somewhere in the middle like I am. I just don't see tight end at 7 being something they should pursue.
Yeah, and I absolutely agree with that. And just to piggyback off of that, and I don't want to completely disrespect the tight end position, but I mean, rarely, like particularly lately, just taking a tight end really end up, bearing the fruit a lot of people wish it would. We saw it with Kyle Pitts being taken at 4, Eric Ebron, who I want to say was taken at 10. Hawkinson is good, but I mean, he was traded for a reason. I mean, they didn't get really what they wanted out of him. So, and it's just one of those things where best case scenario, if he is a Gronk or if he is a Kelsey, I mean, one of those two things that made those two so great is that they had 2 of the top 4 or 5 quarterbacks of all time in Brady and Mahomes. Okay. Who still is my tight end GOAT, by the way, just my opinion, Tony Gonzalez. Tony Gonzalez couldn't lead the team so far. Right. So you might be thinking you're getting Gronk and Kelsey, but don't forget Gronk and Kelsey were so effective because they had Brady and Mahomes. So, and if we had a Tony Gonzalez here, it'd be fantastic. I'm not saying it wouldn't be, but I think particularly in this Brian Callahan offense too, who again has emphasized how important wide receivers are to his offense, and they haven't really used the tight end position much in Cincinnati. You'd have to go wide receiver for sure before you go tight end.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, how many tight ends in the league right now would you classify as elite weapons from a receiving standpoint? 3, maybe. George Kittle, Mark Andrews, Travis Kelce, end of list, maybe. Hawkinson is probably borderline. Maybe Dalton Kincaid gets there eventually. But, like, it's 3, right? And so, like, he could be very good. Brock Bowers could be a very, very good player. And unless he's in that upper echelon of top 2-3 tight ends and like a Hall of Fame type of tight end, I don't think he's giving you the type of weapon the Titans need to look to add to this offense that a Malik Neighbors or Rome Odunze does. So I just don't see, I think there's a drop off there. I think if you're a team that already has some receivers like a Los Angeles Chargers that could potentially use some youth and some run blocking and a little bit of combination of all the things into their offense, he's a perfect pick. But if you're the Titans who are kind of looking at a blank slate, I don't start by going, let's add another tight end to this group.
Right. Yeah, I don't see that either. I mean, it doesn't make any sense, especially at that pick. I mean, if you're like at 15, 20, something like that, and he falls 23, and he's the best player available. Yeah, I mean, and you're exactly right, Sam. I mean, if you think of it off the top of your head, I think a lot of people, I don't know, I think a lot of people don't think about it that way. Like, how many tight ends are in the game actually changing the game on in a week in and week out basis? It's very few and far between. And yeah, I mean, I think a wide receiver like Neighbors or something like that can definitely, I mean, just, take the trajectory of your franchise to a different level. Another couple things, a couple criticisms, I guess, the few criticisms that the Titans franchise has got, maybe Amy Callahan, over the past couple weeks, which has been very few. It's been surprising how supportive Titans fans have all of a sudden. At first it was like, oh my God, we let Mike Vrabel go. This is the end of the world. We're, the whole organization is gone. And then once they brought Callahan and he comes in and does his presser and he says all these amazing things and you really dig into it, people are really supporting it now. But, the couple things that I've seen people not really too keen on is Nick Foles at the offensive coordinator position, and also the addition of Bo Hardigree today as the QB coach. And I think we have to keep in mind, too, that this is going to be Callahan's offense, right? Like, it's not necessarily going to be, Nick Holes's offense, but I don't know if you know, Sam, but how much will Nick Holes go into designing this offense, being a huge part of it? What is his role going to be?
Yeah, I think designing the offense is going to be part of it. I don't think he's the day-to-day play caller, but I think Brian Callahan is trying to reinstall the same sort of relationship and structure that him and Zach Taylor had in Cincinnati, where Zach Taylor was your primary play caller. It was Zach Taylor's offense. And yet Brian Callahan and Zach Taylor had a very special bond and special relationship. I mean, you saw Brian Callahan cry at his opening press conference with the Titans, get all emotional, thinking about how appreciative he was of Zach Taylor and the Bengals organization. He's also been very clear that he wants to install that same type of culture, that same type of family feel within the Titans organization. And so he goes to Nick Holes, somebody who is, let's be frank about it, underqualified to be an offensive coordinator. The man has never worked with quarterbacks at the NFL level. He's never even been a position coach at the NFL level. He's been an offensive assistant for over a decade, was the offensive coordinator at UNLV. It was a below average college offense the 1 year he was there. He steps away. They become a top 30 offense in college football. He goes to the Jags as the pass game coordinator. They have a worse year offensively and overall as a team in his 1 year there. That's not to say Nick Holes can't coach or he can't be a valuable part of a Titans staff. He's not qualified to be an offensive coordinator, but he is qualified to be Brian Callahan's best buddy. These guys were high school teammates together at Mater Dei High School in California. Nick Holes got his first job in coaching at the University of Nebraska because of Bill Callahan. He is tied to this family and tied to these guys. And so I think as Brian Callahan tries to build that same structure he had in Cincinnati, he looks to somebody that he can trust, somebody that can be honest with him, somebody he has a good rapport and relationship with to collaborate and try and design an offense with. Holes has been on the same coaching staff as a couple of the other hires that have been made in this cycle. So it's underwhelming. I'm underwhelmed by it. I think Titans fans have every right to be underwhelmed by it as well with the Holes hire in general. But you have to just try and make yourself feel better about it by saying, this is a Brian Callahan offense. He's calling the shots. And if you believe in Brian Callahan, at least wait and see on Nick Holes and give him the benefit of the doubt.
Right. And I guess the Thea D said Holes will be a Brian's clone. So yeah, and there was a lot made about, when Vrabel was here hiring all his buddies, but that's what all coaches do. I mean, if you look across the league, I mean, that's what they all do as assistants and things like that. And
especially with a first staff, I think that was the criticism of Vrabel, was that it wasn't working, and he kind of kept going back to the same well, trying to fix something that wasn't working before. He's going back to people he knows who run a scheme that's familiar to him. But it's super, super, super common for a first-time head coach who's coming and hiring his first staff to surround himself by people that he is familiar with. The good head coaches have the ability to network outside of their own personal web when things hit the fan, and when you have to separate or fire the offensive coordinator that might be your best friend from, coaching, whoever that is, right? Whether it's Mike Vrabel having a relationship with Tim Kelly or Todd Downing or whoever, or it's Brian Callahan and his new guys. As a head coach, you have to be able to make the hard decisions and replace them with guys that bring in fresh perspective. Mike Vrabel didn't do that very well. Brian Callahan, jury is still out.
And MJ, as far as the coaching staff, just kind of your thoughts as a whole so far.
Yeah, I mean, you basically hit the nail on the head there. A lot of these coaches, hire people that they're familiar with. I was surprised that Bo Hardery got some of the hate that he got. I actually thought he did a decent job, by the end of the year as the interim OC. So I'm encouraged by that. Still doesn't have the most expansive resume, but the fact they were able to salvage that season with what he and Pierce were able to do, I think is interesting. So I think there's more to like there than not. And if you ultimately look at the entire staff and you just have problems with one or two guys, I mean, now we're just nitpicking here. Like it happens for every staff. You'll find guys, offensive coordinators I've never heard of. If you show me all 32 offensive coordinators, I can tell you at least 16 that I've never heard of them, but they're probably just having a close relationship with the head coach. There's nothing really to see here. It's Callahan's offense. It's either going to work because, he makes it work or not.
Well, and a good sign of that too, a good I don't know, piece of the puzzle as well is, right, if the offense works, right, it's probably because of Brian Callahan, but Nick Holes is going to still be involved, have a role in designing this thing. And I think a lot of teams are going to look at it and go, well, it's Brian Callahan's offense. Like exactly what MJ just said. That thing goes because Brian Callahan makes it go. And so you could find potentially some continuity with this coaching staff that a lot of other organizations don't have, where if you give the keys to the car to your offensive coordinator and then your offense takes off, you end up losing your offensive coordinator. The risk of having a defensive head coach or just the risk of pumping up your offensive coordinator too much in general. Like even like the Lions with Ben Johnson, right? Their offense has been so good. Ben Johnson has such a significant role on that offense that he's now getting interviewed for head coaching jobs left and right. I don't think even if the Titans offense thrives, I think it would be a couple years before anybody starts to look around and goes, let's look into this Holes guy as our head coach. I think we're still far from that. So that could be a potential chess move in the future for the Titans. I agree with MJ as well on Bo Hardegree. Some stats that I noted earlier after the hire, he was given the Raiders interim OC job on Halloween. So he really just coached throughout November and December. Things he did with the Raiders: win 5 games with Aiden O'Connell as his starting quarterback, go 5-4. Yeah. Average 22.9 points per game on offense, which I know doesn't sound like a lot, but when you realize that the Raiders in the 8 games prior only reached 20 points per game once and averaged 15.7, it's a big step up when he became the OC. In 6 of the 9 games, he was the offensive coordinator. They did not turn the ball over in Vegas. They turned the ball over in each of the first 8 games before he took over as the OC. And they dropped 60 points on the Chargers, which was just hilarious. So all of those things, for a quarterback coach, I'll take it. Some other names that I'll just like to mention that Bo Hardegree has worked with as the quarterback's coach for: Derek Carr, big arm, likes to throw it deep, likes to take his shots. Jay Cutler, big arm, likes to throw it deep, likes to take his shots, especially in play action. Remind you of anybody? Will Levis. Young Ryan Tannehill with the Miami Dolphins as well, had his quarterback's coach, Bo Hardegree, for a year. So these are the guys that he has worked with. I think there could be a scheme fit here for Will Levis's style of play. I actually kind of like the hire for a quarterback's coach.
Right. I mean, you could almost say that Hardegree was more experienced or more qualified for OC than Holtz was. I mean, he would be, really. I mean, technically.
If you're looking at a guy who's he's been an interim OC, been a quarterback's coach for like 5 years before, like that's somebody who might be OC qualified, not pass game coordinator or whatever. But, I digress.
Guys, we appreciate y'all tuning in tonight. There's 90 people in the house, so please tighten up that like button, as we say here at the Titan Upload Network. It is my birthday today, so for my birthday, you could hit the like button for me. That would be fantastic. We do appreciate you guys. I do want to shout out our sponsor real quick, HOMAGE. Their link is in the description. You could get 20% off with our link. They have all types of awesome NFL gear, every team. So whatever fan you're a team of, you can get gear of. Their shirts are really high quality, awesome stuff. They have starter jackets. They have all types of stuff through HOMAGE, and they've been sponsoring us for a while, so we appreciate them. So MJ, another coach that has been brought on, that I love this hire. I think a lot of people love this hire. Denard Wilson from the Ravens. I want to play a clip of him. I think it's just kind of a fantastic clip. It just kind of shows his attitude and charisma We'll roll this, and I want to get your thoughts on this. Get y'all's thoughts on this hire.
Think about if you became the defensive coordinator, how you do things.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've been doing this for a long time, and I've been around some great defensive coordinators, in my opinion. You know, I've been groomed by Greg Williams. I've been groomed by Todd Bowles, who are very good in this league, and they're very thorough. So, you know, I've been tutored by them. I know how to run a ship. I know, you know, the responsibility. So, if the opportunity presents itself, I'll be ready for it. But I'm here where my feet are, all right, and I'm just trying to be the best defensive back coach that I could be.
So obviously that was with the Eagles, but MJ, what are your thoughts on this hire as far as Denard Wilson goes? And Sam, you can go off that too.
Yeah, absolutely very impressed by Denard Wilson, particularly what he's done the last 2 years, you know, to elevate that Eagles secondary, you know, last year, 2022, and then seeing how much they struggled after like he left and the struggles that they had this year, and then seeing him elevate the Ravens defensive backs and get so much more out of them. And, you know, turn some of these, you know, guys that were not high draft picks at all into absolute studs this year. The amount of takeaways they had, how aggressive they were. I was absolutely impressed with what he's done the last 2 years. Young, up and coming, and a guy that really wants to get after it. So absolutely was a big fan of this Denard Wilson hire. And a guy that was also, you know, sought after, you know. So the fact that Titans were able to win that and get him, very impressed.
Yeah, I like the Denard Wilson hire a whole lot too. Overdue that he got his shot as a defensive coordinator. He is more than qualified and really has proven himself the last 2 years, as MJ pointed out. Did great job with the Eagles 2 years ago, which is when that clip is from. Goes to the Ravens, elevates what was kind of a mediocre pass defense to one of the best pass defenses and one of the best overall defenses. I'm excited to see what he brings to the Titans just as far as blitz packages and pressure, something I think the Titans need to do a whole lot more of. But when you look at Todd Bowles and Greg Williams, the two men that he cited as kind of shaping him and who he is as a coach, those are two guys that like to pressure the quarterback and like to go get after him. So that's all very good. And yeah, I think you can always tell how good a hire is based on what the league is telling you about the hire, what the league is telling you about the people you're seeking. And the league has told the Titans in their pursuit of Denard Wilson that they've got the right guy. Ran Carthon has confirmed that multiple head coach candidates that came in to interview with the Titans listed for Ran Carthon their ideal coaching staff and had Denard Wilson as the defensive coordinator. As Ran Carthon's going through those interviews, multiple head coaches said, but I got to get Denard Wilson. I got to get Denard Wilson. I got to get Denard Wilson, which was easy for Ran to get on board with because these two go all the way back to 2008. Ran Carthon and Denard Wilson were the two finalists for the Atlanta Falcons pro scouting job back in 2008 before either one of them had ever been in the NFL and worked in the league before. Ran Carthon got the job because Denard Wilson took the same position with the Chicago Bears. He was a scout while Ran was a scout. They later reunited in LA. Denard Wilson goes on, and I believe he was like a defensive quality control coach with the Rams in like 2012 as Ran Carthon became the director of player personnel and coached on that same team with a number of these other coaches on the team. I believe Frank Bush was on that coaching staff and with the Rams as well. Like there's a lot of ties here. And so to have a guy that is widely sought after that Ran Carthon has this level of familiarity with, I mean, it just made sense that he's the Titans defensive coordinator.
You're hearing a lot of like it seems like, I mean, this offseason so far too, you're hearing a lot of the Titans come out of a lot of people's mouths, like players and certain coaches and things like that. And it seems like, you know, I think Mike Vrabel had a lot to do with that shift. I mean, 5 or 6 years ago, I mean, kind of, it obviously, I think it started with Malarkey with the season he had, and then Vrabel taking over and kind of making it even more of an attractive place. But Nashville in itself has become a go-to destination for a lot of people. I mean, there's tons of people here moving here, every day, every week, and it's becoming an attractive destination. And I think, the Titans, they've kind of are building up a little more. They got a new stadium coming. And I think that it's finally time that we're starting to get some of these type of mentions and things like that, these type of coaches in here. And I'm excited about the future of the Titans. I think a lot of Titans fans are. Now, you never know. I mean, a bad coaching hire can set you back, 5 years. You know what I mean? But hopefully this is something that it won't happen. But one of the things that I did want to talk about too was the hiring of Bill Callahan. I mean, I think this is such a huge deal. I mean, at least in my eyes. And in a way, I mean, could you almost say that Bill Callahan could be the X-factor for this offense for, going into 2024 in the offensive line?
Sure. Yeah, you can absolutely say that. I mean, we know what a problem it's been. And just as much as it's been a problem of like, hey, you have to draft correctly, I think you also need to develop correctly. And the Titans have just not developed offensive linemen well at all. In general, point blank, period. Taylor Lewan, that's it. End of list, really. Jack Conklin, I guess, end of list. You get a couple veterans in here that can, carry the torch for a little bit, and that's what Ben Jones did. Like, you get a guy like Daniel Brunskill in here last year to just kind of be a starter and, hey, hold down one position on the offensive line without being a problem. And that's gone fine. But I think if you are the Titans as an organization and you want to have the same consistent long-term success that some of these other top-tier organizations in the sport are, you have to be able to have consistency in the trenches. And so if Bill Callahan is able to, I don't know how long he plans on staying, but if he is to be a Titans offensive line coach that can give them some help at developing younger talent in the offensive line, one, it might not force you to use all of your good draft picks on offensive linemen. You might be able to get more value out of somebody that's in the third or fourth round. You protect Will Levis, good things are going to happen. That seems to be a rule that everybody can get behind.
Yeah, and what a great point you made on like developing these offensive linemen, because I mean that was one of my things too, because we've gone through like the Keith Carters, the Jason Tailings of the world, and ultimately what are they there for if we can't, coach up some of these guys to at the very least, look competent, even if they're not even particularly talented, just look competent through the season, like a Dennis Daly or, at times with Daly Duncan struggled. And we haven't even been able to do that. To just teach them basic things to do in order to like not get completely killed throughout the entire game. So without a doubt, it's been the weakest positional group to me for this team for the last 4 or 5 years. And now we should finally see better activity there.
MJ, what has been the issue? Is it just the players they've had? Is it the coaching? Is it all of it together?
Yeah, I think it is
the last 5,
the combination of the talent and the coaching. And for me, I mean, they've drafted, the Isaiah Wilson situation was just a disaster. So they have had some draft picks that, were on them, in terms of how they didn't develop or just didn't even make the team ultimately. But I think you can at least, and I've seen organizations on the league do this, if you can get, just a number of talented guys and even some veterans, just coach them up to be competent enough, even if they're not particularly talented. And that's what they've done in Cincinnati for the last 5 years, because I don't think they've had a good offensive line for even 5 years. Even Jonah Williams has been a below average left tackle, but they still win games with him.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I would lean more. I think if you're doing a spectrum of talent to coaching, I lean more talent than coaching, but it's just hard to tell. It's so hard to tell when your top guys are hurt and we're looking at second or third stringers coming in here and your draft picks aren't working out and Dylan Radins has a knee and, Isaiah Wilson's nowhere to be seen. And, you've lost guy after guy and Taylor Lewan's got a knee or a PED or whatever it is that's keeping him off the field. Like, you're on the depth and you get to bare bones. And so over the last 2 years, I think the Titans have had a real problem which probably led to Mike Vrabel's firing, because I do think part of what led to Mike Vrabel's firing is his stubbornness to keep his own coaching staff in place and wanting to have some continuity of his coaching staff. I don't think Mike Vrabel blamed a lot of his assistant coaches for the lack of production. I think he blamed the talent. And I just think the lines got very blurred between, are the coaches not maximizing these players, or are the players just really not it? And you could copy paste a coaching staff that can't do it. They definitely just need to improve both of them. Why not both? Let's do both.
Right. And I mean, and the Titans, I mean, it was a revolving door this last year at left tackle. I mean, it was absolutely painful to watch. And I mean, Jalen Duncan, I mean, he's a 6th-round pick. You know, what do you expect? I mean, the guy, you're going to throw him in there at left tackle against some of the most insane, talented, physically talented people in the world. I mean, some of these guys are, 260 pounds running a 4.40. These defensive ends are ridiculous. How insane. I mean, that's why there's some of the most highest paid players in the league. It's just wild. And I can't remember which game it was. It was towards the end of the season. We were at the game, and we had got somebody had let us borrow their on the field passes. And me and James, who's usually on the show with me, we went down to the field, and Duncan was starting that game, and he was signing autographs. And my buddy James fist bumped him, and he's like, "We need to see that dog in you today, man." He's like, all right, yeah. And dude, the poor guy went out there and got destroyed the entire game. Like, I think they even took him out after. I can't remember exactly which game it was, but I mean, it's just kind of been that way, the last couple seasons. No matter who they've thrown in there, they've just got literally destroyed. It's been a sad situation. Kind of switching gears, I want to get to your mock draft, Sam, and Sin City Titan, who he's a big supporter of you guys at AtoZ. He loves you guys. But anyways, he says, I like Sam's drafts take so far. Hope we can get a second round O lineman. I do want to pull up your mock draft here and just kind of, explain to me your thoughts and why you chose the way you did.
Yeah, I mean, so I kind of think I went into a little bit of detail about the Malik Neighbors selection. Yeah. I actually do think Joe Alt will end up going somewhere in those first 6 picks. I think you see 3 quarterbacks at the top of the draft. I think you see Marvin Harrison Jr. You might even see Brock Bowers go at 5. And so I think if the receivers, I think Rome Odunze, Malik Neighbors, you could kind of flip a coin to see which one goes off the board there. It probably depends on a team's need or scheme fit. So I think if Neighbors lasts till 7, which is probably a coin flip, I think he's the slam dunk pick for the Titans there. I do think they go wide receiver, but I don't think there's any way you get out of round 2 without the Titans taking an offensive tackle. I know they don't plan to pick for need. Like I said before, it's best player available, but you have to look yourself in the mirror and say, what do we really need to address right here? And if you're not adding some stud offensive linemen, especially offensive tackles in free agency, you're going to have to get one. So Patrick Paul is a offensive tackle out of the University of Houston that has just about every physical tool you could ask for in a left tackle. He has started 4 years at left tackle at Houston, over 40 games of experience in a air raid pass first type of offense. He's 6'7", 333 pounds. He's got 36 plus inch arms, all the length, all the strength, all of the ability to anchor. He's got that dog in him that you mentioned. He is chippy and ready to go. There's just some technical flaws. And we talked about Bill Callahan and the impact of Bill Callahan earlier in the show. And if you can really feel like you can maximize a round 2 guy with all of the physical ability in the world, Patrick Paul will probably be there at 38. And he's somebody who I would have circled that could start for the Titans at left tackle legitimately as a rookie. And you could really develop into a very good left tackle. And you might not have to take him in the first round. Cam Hart is I think a really impressive just press man cover corner that can play out on the perimeter. Not really a ball hawk, maybe some questions about his ability against the run. But I think he flips his hips very smoothly, runs down the field very well with wide receivers, has exceptional length for a corner. I got to watch him at the Senior Bowl, and I just really loved what he did in man coverage. And so looking at a defense that, Sean Murphy-Bunting is a free agent, Christian Fulton is a free agent. You really have Roger McCreary, and that's it at cornerback right now. Cam Hart is somebody who, again, can be a plug-and-play guy at a position that has a ton of depth, and grab him in the 4th round. Javon Foster is more of honestly, kind of a Jalen Duncan type that has a ton of physical ability, but just has really struggled with some of his pass protection. And I think you take a flyer on to be a future swing tackle for you. He's played a lot of left tackle at Mizzou, probably profiles a little bit better as a right tackle at the next level. So you see what you can get in him developmentally in the 5th round. Jalen Simpson is a former cornerback that now plays safety at the University of Auburn. He's a college teammate of Roger McCreary. They were actually a cornerback duo at one point, Simpson and McCreary at Auburn. He's now a safety, and he's a ball hawk. I mean, this is a guy that likes to be free roaming. He can be very good in man coverage, which I like his ability to go to the nickel and kind of match up with some tight ends, but he's hunting for the ball. Sometimes he gets flagged because of it. Sometimes he gets beat on yards after catch because of it, but he's got a lot of speed and a nose for the football. I like that pick in the 6th round because, again, what is there? Is Elijah Molden your safety next year? I don't know. And even if he is, he's got 1 year left on his deal. And then Carson Steele in the 7th round there, who, running back might not come to the mind of Titans fans as a pressing need right now. Tajay Spears is the future of this team in the backfield. But if Derrick Henry is not brought back, which I do not believe he will be, you really have Tajay Spears and Hassan Haskins. And I'm not sure they want to go into the season with Hassan Haskins as their second back. So you might need to add a running back. I'd like to see them add a running back that complements Tajay really well. Carson Steele is impossible to tackle one-on-one. I mean, he's just so good in short areas. He is a powerful, powerful back that, rumored to squat like almost 700 pounds. He's just a really crazy, explosive dude that could be good for the Titans in 3rd down and 2 and 4th down and 1 as their power back here to give Tajay a break. So he's somebody I've got my eye on in the later rounds that they could get some good value out of.
And MJ, have you done any, mock drafts or anything like that? Have you, what do you think of this his mock?
Oh no, it looks great so far. This is just when I start my my draft content and my deep dives. But positionally, I agree. And then I can really speak for Malik Neighbors and again how much I really like him and very intrigued by Patrick Paul. But I'm still very much shallow when it comes to my draft knowledge currently in this offseason.
Well, and as MJ mentioned earlier, though, I'm going to have some regular mock drafts that update throughout the next few months here because, this is a constant evolving and changing process. And when March 15th hits and we're sitting here with, 60% of the league's free agents having signed to new teams, we could be looking at the Titans and saying, running back's not really a need anymore. Or, hey, we went and got a wide receiver. Let's go take Joe Alt in the 1st round. We don't necessarily need to put all of our chips in the Malik Neighbors basket. I don't know what the offseason is going to look like. This is why we start the process early and kind of adapt as it goes. But all of these positional needs, I think I went and tried to address positional needs as things currently sit. And yet the Titans also have $60+ million in cap space to work with, and they're going to be active in spending it.
I like the Carson Steele pick. I mean, I think he was a transfer to UCLA.
Yeah, it was at Ball State. It was a record breaker at Ball State and transferred to UCLA and had a big year. Had a lot of touchdowns, didn't really explode on the stat sheet only because he was limited in his carries. He kind of was splitting carries in the UCLA backfield, but a lot of physical ability there, and I think his legs are fresh enough that he could be pretty good for a few years in the NFL.
I was listening to Turron Davenport on what's his name, Jared Stillman's show today, and he was talking about Joe Mixon possibly being cut by the Bengals, and bringing up the thought of, if Henry's gone, Mixon joining the Titans and kind of being a 1-2 with Spears. It seems like it'd be a pretty good combination. I don't know, but I don't know how much. I feel like Mixon's, if he does get cut, which, at the same time, you think of it though, running backs aren't really getting paid much nowadays. So, there might be a good price on Mixon if he did get cut. I don't know if he'd be a good fit or not, but I don't know, just something just to throw out there.
I don't know. My initial reaction is I don't like that combination. I don't know. Maybe I'm higher on Tyjae Spears than some people out there, but I think he's a 3-down back. Like, I think he should be on the field. Yeah, I think Tyjae Spears needs to be the primary back here. I don't see him splitting carries. I see a Carson Steele or somebody who can go pick up, like, hey, they know we're running the ball between the tackles. Let's go get a guy who can run one dude over, or, hey, just go out there and be a lead blocker or block and pass protection to give Tyjae a break. But Tyjae can pass block. Tyjae can run routes. He can catch the ball. I think the NFL as a whole is starting to go more towards the smaller, more agile running back. And so I have no doubts that Tyjae Spears can be the Titans' primary guy. I don't think they necessarily need to get somebody like Joe Mixon to split carries. And I do think if you're bringing in a guy to be the 1-2 punch with him, I would try and get somebody who, like I said, is different in skill set. I feel like Mixon has a lot of the same strengths that Tyjae does in terms of his pass blocking ability and value in the passing game. But I think Tajae's that guy. So interesting. And I actually think that's a good comment there, that the 49ers have never been known before they got Christian McCaffrey to just run with one running back. They've kind of been somebody who can plug and play different backs, whether it's Elijah Mitchell or Matt Breida or Jeff Wilson or whoever it is with the ball, and find success. So maybe he's got the same thing in mind, but I like Tyjae as the main guy.
What do you think about Tyjae, MJ? And like, do you want Henry back, or do you think it's like, say hypothetically, okay, yes, Henry's coming back. Do you want him back, or do you think it's time to move on and just let Tyjae take the reins?
Yeah, I think it's time to move on. I think for sure Tyjae will get the primary carries for sure next year. And I'm just not interested in watching Henry just run for like 500 or 600 yards here. I'd rather him do that somewhere else, for like someone that's more of a contender at this point. Although I guess you never know, but I won't be too optimistic in the first year with Brian Callahan, the second year with Levis. Tyjae, I feel like he's definitely like more of like the newer age 3-down backs, like a Isaiah Pacheco, a Tony Pollard, which we're gonna have to get used to, because we've just had guys that we could challenge for 2,000 yards. So it's going to be much more like that, which we're not used to, but that's the NFL now. Derrick Henry was I think still second or third in rushing yards this year, and he wasn't even that particularly as effective as he's been. Yeah. So in terms of that new age, borderline 1,000-yard running back, 3-down back, I think that's what Tyjae is.
With value in the passing game too.
Yes, with value in the passing game, yeah.
Yeah, and that's probably the most valuable thing of all. But anyways, guys, we're going to wrap it up here. Sam, MJ, I really appreciate you guys coming on. You guys go follow AtoZ Sports if you don't follow them already. They're out there on every platform, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, all that stuff. Follow those guys and follow AtoZ Film Room. Our dude, James Foster, we've known him for a while now. When he was No Flags Film, then AtoZ brought him on, which was an amazing hire. And go follow AtoZ Film Room too. And MJ, obviously go follow Sports Fan Entertainment. That's his YouTube and his Twitter at the MJ Take. Are you on any other platforms?
No, those are my main two, yeah.
Okay. So, anyways, guys, thank you all again. Sam, we appreciate you, man. And tighten up, everybody. We will see you next time.